This is the 16th program in the series Introduction to Counseling. It is about evaluation of counseling. You learned about the different aspects of counseling which will help you to become an effective counselor. This is the last program in the series, and it deals with general issues and problems of counseling, the evaluation of counseling, and prospects for its future. There are a number of questions which you may have or others may ask concerning counseling. First, you may wonder if counseling really does any good. What does counseling do? Do counseling approaches differ very much in their effectiveness? To judge how effective counseling may be, we must first decide how to evaluate results. There are several possible yardsticks which may be used in evaluating counseling effectiveness. The results of any study will vary depending on which criteria we choose to apply. As a counselor, you might believe that if the counselee is content with the results of the sessions, you've been successful. By this criterion, if the counselee believes that he has been helped, you've reached your goal. Do you believe the results of counseling evaluation would be the same no matter which criteria we chose to use? Correct, but there is considerable evidence that when asked the results of counseling, most people will report an improvement. This is because it is easier to report success whether it actually occurred or not. Also, if people want to see an improvement, which most counselees do, they're more likely to find one. Another problem with the use of the counselee's opinion as a criterion for success is that it is often inaccurate. For example, people often hold high, though unwarranted, opinions of the success of fortune tellers and faith healers. What would you expect to hear as the counselee's judgment of counseling? Another way to judge the success of counseling might be to make an assessment of the counselee's behavior before and after counseling takes place. In the case of college freshmen, for example, we could use grade point changes and dropout rate for evaluation. In the case of employee counseling, number of job changes might be used for evaluation. But even though these criteria could be measured precisely, they could still be misleading. For example, sometimes the counseling goal is to help the counselee face the fact that his job is the wrong one for him. To have the courage to leave the wrong job would indicate success, not failure. Would you always say that the number of counselee job changes always gives an accurate indication of counseling success or failure? There are other cases in which results which initially appear to be unfavorable are actually either positive or not significant. For example, some students previously making good grades, whose social adjustment was helped through counseling, may find their grades dropping as their social life increases. And if counseling is done only in low ability groups, the continuation of a relatively high dropout rate is not as significant. It may also be possible to rate the counselee's behavior either according to a scale previously decided upon or according to the rater's best judgment. Raters can read case material or conduct follow-up interviews before rating the counselee. What is another method of counseling evaluation? Yes. To assure an accurate judgment, however, it is important to use more than one rater and to supply them with all the necessary information. Another source of inaccuracy is the subjective nature of this type of rating. The rater's value judgments, as well as the counselee's behavior, will inevitably have a bearing on the results. What would you include as important factors which influence counselee ratings? Right. Once a method for evaluating counseling effectiveness is decided upon, adequate controls must be established. Many factors besides counseling influence a person's behavior over a period of time, even without counseling. A reliable evaluation method takes such natural changes into account, or control for them. To judge counseling effectiveness, we must compare favorable changes made by counselees with those changes made by persons facing similar problems, but who have not had the benefit of counseling. This is what is meant by controls. Would you attribute all the counselee's change in behavior during a year to counseling? Correct. The establishment of the control group or individual may pose some difficulties. Although the two individuals or groups should be as much alike as possible, some bias is introduced by the very fact that the counselee is a person motivated to seek help. To evaluate counseling, the counselees must be compared to what kind of group? Sometimes counseling is given to only half of the applicants for counseling so that the other half may be used as controls. This may not seem quite fair or in keeping with the philosophy of a counselor, but it removes the bias of motivation and thus assures more reliable evaluation results. There are no simple answers to finding the best controls for any situation. One frequently used method is to counsel half the applicants for a period, using the other half as the control group until the end of a specified time. Then the control group may also receive counseling. It is important to remember that the individuals in the personal counseling control group should be matched as closely as possible with similar individuals in the treatment or experimental group. How can the counselor establish a suitable control group? One criterion, which has been used with some success for evaluation of academic counseling, is academic achievement. For this factor, the control group may occasionally be allowed to consist of students of the same level who do not receive counseling. As measured by academic achievement and continuation with the course of study until completion, many counsel groups have shown significantly favorable differences as compared to non-counselees. Thus, there is good reason to believe that in the area of academic counseling, at least, a qualified counselor can provide a materially useful service. There have been a number of studies made to determine if personal counseling is worthwhile. You've learned about only a limited number of counseling aspects, but you may, with some further instruction and practice, make some contribution. There are clear indications that counseling often helps counselees to be more successful. In what area have studies shown counseling to be of significant help? Before discussing the second question, what can counseling accomplish? There is one very important fact to remember. Counseling is not intended to improve the counselee's mental health. Counseling is not psychotherapy, and mental health improvement is not a counseling goal. Since improvement of certain social behavior is one of the goals of mental health therapy, some confusion is understandable, but counselors should understand the differences. Probably the most important result of counseling is for the counselees to have more realistic understanding of their actual goals and abilities. Such self-understanding helps any person to make more practical and effective decisions. This leads to a much healthier adjustment to life and work. What is not a goal of counseling? If an underachiever with sufficient basic aptitudes obtains counseling help, he or she is usually successful in improving performance. If basic aptitudes are quite low, however, the counseling cannot be very effective. Motivation and certain behavior may be improved, but the counselor cannot change the counselee's natural ability. What do you think that counseling should try to accomplish? Students who have marginal learning aptitudes benefit from counseling only if it shows them that further professional study is not the sole answer, provides other vocational counseling, as discussed in Program 12, and aids the counselee in making a better vocational adjustment. Can counselors help underachievers achieve academic success? The third question is, do counseling approaches differ in their effectiveness? You will remember that one major difference in approach is the treatment of counselees in groups rather than individually. Studies have shown that when goals are adequately defined, groups can be assisted as effectively as individuals in improving their prospects of reaching these goals. A controversy concerning the relative effectiveness of directive and non-directive counseling has existed for some time. Recent studies have shown that while there are counselees who prefer each method, both approaches have been found effective, and neither is clearly superior. Given well-defined goals, which counseling approach is more effective? The factor which apparently makes the most difference is the quality of the counselor. The counselor as an individual, with a philosophy and set of goals, has been discussed earlier. It is clear that the ability of the counselor is the main influence on success or failure of counseling sessions. Counselors should review current literature and use research findings to help them decide which problems to attack first in the limited time which is available for counseling. These findings are also helpful in deciding which techniques to use in certain cases and how many interviews to schedule. Which factor has been found to have the greatest effect on counseling success? As a counselor, you will wish to be as effective as possible in the least amount of time. Although techniques and time to be devoted to each counselee are subject to change, Research studies can be helpful in setting initial program guidelines. Every counselor wishes to be helpful in what way? After this brief evaluation of counseling based on recent research, let us take a quick look at the future of counseling, a future in which you may participate as a full or part-time counselor. One exploration of the future of counseling has been done by C. Gilbert Wren, who recently conducted a study for the American Personnel and Guidance Association. His book, The Counselor in a Changing World, is largely based on this study. In his book, Wren pointed out that new concepts are now emerging concerning human behavior, which are of major significance to counselors. First, we know that humans have multiple abilities rather than a single overall ability, and we are learning ways to distinguish these skills and develop them. The alteration of behavior through reinforcement techniques and the difficulty in character or vocational choice are two more types of knowledge that Wren believes will become more important for the counselor. How many abilities has it been found that persons have? Another new idea which may become more significant for the counselor is that persons may become motivated to seek counsel or find positive values for their lives, while in the past we have believed they were employing counseling just to escape tensions and discomfort. More and more, the counselor of the future will aid the counselee in achieving personal identity. What are two other areas which will also become important? Another prediction Wren made in his book was that counselors of the future will find themselves dealing increasingly with intellectual development. Conflicts between the socialization process and the individual will become increasingly important, he believes, and living with people from other cultures will also be a prime concern. According to Wren, even if our world becomes a utopia where anxiety is minimal, problem solving is learned in the educational process, and undesirable behavior is diagnosed and stopped early in life, the counselor's functions will continue. For instance, as we become a society with more free time, counselors may find themselves advising about leisure activities as well as vocational choices. What is one reason why you think a person will seek counseling in the future? Persons will still be individuals, even in an overpopulated world of the future. Individuals interact with each other, and counselors will find a continuing task in facilitating these human relations. The counselor will help structure groups, help the adjustment to different personality types, and work with individuals to improve the quality of these interactions. As the world becomes more complex, it will become necessary for us to be knowledgeable about a greater amount of increasingly complex information. This will be particularly true for counselors who may deal with a great variety of issues, from behavioral problems to vocational choice. One of the functions of the counselee of the future will be to make sure the counselee has all the information necessary to make a wise decision. This may require a knowledge of several new media, such as this teaching machine. What may be another major function of the counselor of the future? Counseling will surely play a role in the future. Remember, however, that this series of programs is not intended to qualify you as a professional counselor. You should be able, however, to obtain an overview of the process as an appreciation of the usefulness and the limitations of counseling.